Hey everyone, it's Triple Mango Threat, and today I have with me the Commander Mechanic. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hey folks, I'm Chris and I'm your Commander Mechanic. You can find me on YouTube by searching Commander Mechanic, where I do viewer submitted deck techs and tune ups, as well as deck building advice and podcasts with cool people. You can typically find me around the Streamiverse as well. If there's anybody streaming some Commander, I'll be on their channel.
So I challenged the Commander Mechanic, or Chris, to build one of his pet decks for only $100, and you definitely had to geek out about it. So Chris, can you tell us who your commander is?
Oh, okay. So I went with not necessarily a pet commander, but a pet archetype
Okay.
here. For anybody that has checked out my channel or is familiar with my channel, I love when a deck can build big beefy boys. It is one of my catchphrases. When we build a massive creature, whether it be through Voltron or through a dozen triggers or putting counters on it, I love attacking with something that is just ridiculous. So I put together a relatively budget deck. Actually came in significantly under the $100 budget at about $75
Cool.
at this. With a red green, so gruel, really stompy Timmy deck around the new Wulfgar of Icewind Dale.
Cool.
Wulfgar is a 5 mana 4/4 human barbarian with melee, which is the triggered ability out of Conspiracy. For every opponent you attack, the creature with melee gets +1/+1 until end of turn. But the juicy bit is that Wulfgar has what people are referring to as an attack harmonicon on it,
Mm-hmm.
meaning when you attack, any of your attack triggers double.
Yeah.
And that's really what I want to do. That's what I want to geek out on.
So your deck is really wanting to attack. That's what you want.
Yes, this is about turning sideways. This entire deck is about attacking and making sure that one of your attackers or all of your attackers go from like 2/2s up to 20/20s
Okay.
in one attack. Like it's huge.
So what are some cards that you want to mention that just have to be in this deck?
Oh, so I'm a big advocate of ensuring that no deck has must-haves. A deck can do whatever you want without specific cards in it,
Mm-hmm.
but linchpin to this strategy in particular are the creatures that pump all other creatures on attack. And there are a few of them. There are a handful of them. A couple that I could include and a couple that I couldn't include just for budget reasons.
Mm-hmm.
But in this build in particular, there are three that I would consider your heavy hitters.
Yeah.
That is Blossoming Bogbeast, Cultivator of Blades,
Mm-hmm.
and Wild Beastmaster.
Okay.
So all three of them on attack pump all of your other creatures. Blossoming Bogbeast gains you 2 life on attack. Then your creatures get +X/+X and trample until end of turn, where X is the amount of life you gained this turn. Even if that's just 2, with Wulfgar out, you're gaining 4 life and giving your creatures +4/+4. Like that's enough to turn a Llanowar Elves
Uh-huh.
into a threat on the table, right?
Yeah.
Cultivator of Blades, on the other hand, when it attacks, other attacking creatures get +X/+X until end of turn, where X is Cultivator of Blades powers. It also has Fabricate 2, meaning it can enter with 2 +1/+1 counters on it, making it a base 3/3 in many cases. So when it attacks, creatures you control get +3/+3, or with Wulfgar out, it could get +6/+6. Again, a way to turn something that's a 1/1 or a 2/2 into a significant chunk of life.
Yeah.
And then Wild Beastmaster is a 3 mana 1/1. Whenever it attacks, each other creature gets +X/+X, where X is Wild Beastmaster's power. And it's just a 1/1 to begin with. So again, on attack, it could be giving everything else +2/+2. But these three together, you can stack the triggers so that everything is getting +20/+20 or more.
Yeah. That is really cool.
Yeah, it is. It's one of those. If you've ever built a deck where you do one thing and it triggers a dozen things on the table, it's one of those decks. It's like a Rube Goldberg machine where you go to combat with Wulfgar out, and
Mm-hmm.
suddenly you're saying, "I get this 2 times, I get this 2 times, I get this 2 times," and then you're having to do some math or letting the blockers do math because math is for blockers.
That's right. Yeah. That is really cool. I have a Wolfgar deck coming out this Saturday, or by the time this episode comes out, it came out last Saturday.
Mm.
But I love what you did. Mine was a $90 budget, so I'm surprised you got it to 70. I'm really impressed.
So yeah, I managed to trim a few instances, and there was some room where I could include one or two higher budget cards, but the deck really doesn't need it. The list that I've got is really tight. The curve's just a little bit higher. It's just a little over 3.5. Typically, I like to stay around 3 for my curve, so this one's just a bit higher. But there's room to upgrade this.
Yeah.
I'm going to be doing a deck tech on this on my channel eventually as well. But there are some really good upgrades you can do within the $100 budget.
That is awesome. Can I tell you a little bit about my commander that I chose?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's hear it.
All right, so my commander is Darien, King of Keldor. So whenever I'm dealt damage, I make that many 1/1 soldiers.
Absolutely.
And
That's a good one.
so I really went into the whole thing of, okay, if my opponents can't deal me damage, I'm going to find some way to hit myself. So
Right.
Ankh of Mishra. Whenever a land enters the battlefield, it's going to deal 2 damage to that land's controller. Dingus Staff, whenever a creature dies, is going to deal 2 damage to that creature's controller. And then Jinxed Idol. At our upkeep, it deals 2 damage to us, and it gives us the option to sacrifice it to give it to an opponent, but we're not going to do that because we already benefit from it. And then we eventually win the game, with Mere Entity. We'll just pay mana to buff up our creatures, and then since we have so many tokens, it's just very devastating. Or
Absolutely. Are you running like a Soul's Attendant and Soul Sister in here so that whenever you make those dudes, you gain back the life that you lost?
Yes, I have Soul Warden, but the other one, Soul's Attendant, that's actually a $3 or $4 card right now.
Ooh, oof.
Yeah, so Soul Warden, the same exact thing, only $1. So I don't know what's going on there.
Weird. Maybe it's just been a while since a reprint. But you can get a lot of those effects. Like there are 3 or 4 or 5 of those effects that you can stack in a deck, especially at this budget too. Where you can be losing 2 life in your upkeep and making 2 guys and then gaining 6 life.
Yes.
It's a very efficient deck. I've seen a few do it before. It's great.
Like Ajani's Welcome is an enchantment for 1 white. When a creature enters your battlefield, you gain 1 life. So that with Soul Warden, like you're dealt 1 damage, you gain 2 life, so you can end up being at like 100 life, and everybody's going to be like, how did this happen?
Yeah, right. Did you put anything in there that lets you pay life to do things, like life as a cost?
Actually, I believe Darien specifies you can't pay life, like you have to be dealt damage.
So is there anything like a land, for instance, that deals you damage when you tap it, like it's probably out of budget, but like a City of Brass style effect?
There is one, and it's Nomad Stadium. It's like some weird card from Odyssey that I've probably only seen in this deck, and it's only 25 cents. It comes in untapped, and when you tap it, you get a white mana. It deals you 1.
And that's the one with Threshold too, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's just like an obscure card, and I'm like, well, it's another way to deal myself damage, and I get mana from it, so that works great.
Yeah, absolutely. I've seen some higher power builds of Darien that run off of Mana Crypt and losing Mana Crypt flips.
Okay.
Or they use all of the lands that deal damage to yourself, like the Mana Confluences and the City of Brasses. And there's also one out of Odyssey block as well called Tarnished Citadel. It taps to make a mana of any color, but it deals 3 damage to you.
Oh.
And in Darien, it's like tap, make 3 dudes. Like it's pretty good in this deck in particular. But again, budget wise, I'm not sure if it'd fit into a $100 build.
Yeah, I saw some builds that were adding Urborg, Tomb of Yawgmoth, and I'm like, that is so weird, but turns out there's another card. Whenever you tap a swamp, you deal 1 damage to yourself.
Right. Well, there's also Karma as well, the enchantment that is beginning of each player's upkeep. They lose 1 life for each swamp that they have. But that's loss of life, not damage, right?
Oh.
I'm actually pulling up. No, it is damage. Yeah. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, Karma deals damage to that player equal to the number of swamps they control.
Yeah. So they just tossed. I mean, I didn't want to put it in this one because actually my budget, so I really went as close to that 100 as possible because like I want some good card draw in the deck because it's mono white and it needs some help sometimes. So I thought like Mentor of the Meek, that's a budget card, but like I'm making so many like 1/1 creatures. I'm going to be drawing so many cards off of this.
What other draw engines do you have in a mono white build like that?
So I put in Endless Atlas. It is like a once a turn thing, but it's better than just one card that you're drawing each turn. So we pay 2, and if we have lands that are 3 of the same name, which in a mono white deck is very likely, we can draw a card, or even Dawn of Hope. Or since we're going to be gaining so much life off of, Ajani's Welcome, Soul Warden, Impassioned Orator, we can pay 2, and we're going to draw a card off of that as well.
Fantastic. Yeah. The White is really getting some good supplemental card draw
Yes.
lately, especially at lower mana values, which is important. Endless Atlas is one. Tome of Legends is another one, though it's
Mm-hmm.
creeping up to the $4 or $5 mark.
Yeah, I saw
Um,
that.
but previously, White had to deal with like Mind's Eye
Mm-hmm.
for card draw, and that's a 5 mana artifact that you have to pay for every draw
Yeah.
too. It gets to be a lot, but really you can build a good budget mono white deck with some good card draw options in it and not have to break the bank.
Mm-hmm.
One thing before we go, I'm gonna have a tweet about this go up shortly.
Mm-hmm.
By this time, in the past, by the time somebody's hearing this episode,
Yeah.
but the enchantment Gratuitous Violence, which is a 5 mana enchantment that was reprinted a couple of times, used to be $6 or $7,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a 5 mana enchantment for 2 colorless and 3 red that reads: if a creature you control would deal damage to a permanent or player, it deals double that much damage instead.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Now that's not combat damage; that's any damage.
Okay.
So anything that triggers damage, anything that does direct damage or shocks your opponents, if it's
Yeah.
a creature, it would deal double damage. Now it used to be $6 or $7, but it was just reprinted
Yep, I
in
see
the
that.
same precon as Wulfgar, and now it's less than $1.
Uh-huh.
So if you're looking to build any kind of budget deck that is going to be punching your opponents, look to this enchantment. If you're doing any kind of burn, any kind of direct damage, if it's creature based, like if you're running Harsh Mentor, for instance, that can ping your opponents for 2 over and over again, if you're running a Tor brand deck, anything like that, where your creatures are dealing damage over and over again, pick up this card. If it's anything like its past, it's going to creep back up to $6 or $7 in the next couple of months. Pick it up now while it's less than $1. It's great for any kind of budget deck you're building.
I absolutely agree. Yeah, 73 cents.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. For something that like 3 weeks ago was $7, anybody who's building on a budget, it pays to have this in your collection.
Yeah, especially because the older cards have actually kind of held their price. Like Onslaught is still around like the high $6 area.
Right, right. And you'll see that cards right around that Invasion, Plane Shift, Apocalypse, Odyssey, Torment, Judgment, right around there, those are starting to creep up in price. So just like that pre-modern era, thanks, Prof. Uh, once you see those cards start to climb, that's when you need to go in there and you need to pick up the hidden gems, because all of those card prices are going to increase on short order.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, just while I was building this deck, I saw it and I was like, this is one that more people should be picking up. It's great, especially because it doesn't specify combat damage, which means, especially in this deck, but in many decks, you can do things like double up on the damage of an Inferno Titan.
Mm-hmm.
You can double up on the damage of a Hell Rider. Uh, Hell Rider says whenever a creature you control attacks, Hell Rider deals 1 damage to the defending player or planeswalker. With Gratuitous Violence out, that's 2 damage. And with Wulfgar out, now you get twice as many of those triggers. So you're attacking an opponent with 3 creatures. You're suddenly dealing, 4 damage per creature? So you're
Oh.
dealing 12 damage before any combat
Oh.
with Gratuitous Violence and Wulfgar out. It gets really crazy really fast.
This is fair magic right there.
Right, right. And some people say budget decks can't be powerful. I beg to differ. I just did a series on 4 budget decks out of Adventures in the Forgotten Realms around the uncommon commanders
Mm-hmm.
that were released, all of them $50 decks. Built and balanced to play against each other. But let me tell you, there are a couple of those decks that I would put into the foray with any other deck, and it would not only hold its own, it would excel.
That's awesome. Okay, I'll have to check those out.
Yeah, yeah, it's part of my Adventures in the Forgotten Realms Battle Box series.
Okay, so you're like releasing your own commander decks in a sense.
I'm working with my affiliate to potentially offer these as like a quote unquote pre-con for them. It's like a $50 worth of value, going to be less than that. We'll see.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, but for anybody looking to get into the format, budget is a great way to do it. I always recommend to somebody, don't break the bank if you're testing the format.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people don't know what they like about Commander yet. So being able to get into the format on something that's a little less expensive, if you are just getting into Magic, let alone Commander, maybe you don't have the collections that some people do. You know, the people that played in college 3 or 4 years ago, or
Right.
the people that played when they were growing up, when they were kids. Being able to build a $50 deck and sit down at any table is very welcoming for this format. And I'm always a big advocate of ensuring that just because a deck is budget doesn't mean that it can't do the thing.
Yeah.
Every deck can do the thing.
Well, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate you taking your time out, and I'm really excited to do another episode sometime.
Absolutely, absolutely, Magoo. Thank you for having me on, and we will definitely chat again soon.
Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I did, and if you'd like to check out any of the Commander Mechanics links, it's all going to be in the description down below. Thank you to the patrons who help support this content, and you can also become a $10 patron to see your name at the end of these videos and receive an exclusive Ultra Sleeve each month. Be sure to comment down below what you'd like us to talk about next, and subscribe for more Mango content. I'll see you all in the next one. Peace.